We can talk now to Thom Brooks, who's a former advisor to Labour and a professor of law and government at Durham University. And we are suffering a little bit of a delay on our line today. Don't know whether it's the weather or what, but I hope you can hear me, Mr. Brooks. What do you make of what David Cameron said, first of all?
Well, I think he's right to say that there are some questions to answer for those who want a Brexit and want Britain to leave the European Union. But I think that his remarks that somehow the arrangements between France and the UK might be terminated if Britain were to leave Europe, I think is just pure scaremongering.
Well, what are the current border arrangements and why would they change?
Well, the border arrangements, it's a bilateral agreement between the UK and France about how they will manage security and border crossings along the Eurotunnel. These are arrangements that have been made many years ago and have been in place ever since. What's interesting is this thought that somehow leaving Europe would have some effect on this. I think it's probably true that if the UK left the European Union, yes, its relationship with European Union countries would change, and there could be some repercussions from that. But this agreement between France and the UK is independent of that. It's not part of being a part of the European Union. And it suggests at least two things to me. One is that we've been hearing for some time now about the very close working relationship between Britain and France. But today we learn that at a moment's notice, the French might somehow try to back out of the deal, which suggests that the close working shoulder-to-shoulder relationship isn't half as close and as strong as we were led to believe. And the other thing it suggests, at least to me, is it's been 2 years we've been hearing about these EU reforms that the Prime Minister was going to sell us. And now, less than a week later, we're not hearing much about it. We're now hearing, instead of the positive case for his reforms, we're instead hearing about the fear about things that have little to do with them.
So you mentioned the word
tact.
You mentioned the word scaremongering there a little earlier. Why do you think he's feeling the need to do that, if it is the case?
Well, I think it probably is the case, and I think the reason for it is that his reforms, and I think, to be fair, he deserves some credit for having any proposal at all. A lot of people thought any deal would be impossible. He has come up with a deal, but it is very complex and nuanced. The kind of deal that you'd have to be either a bureaucrat, an academic, or a civil servant to make any sense of. It's hardly roused the passions of those who are his supporters. He's had not the strongest support in favor of it. He's also, I think these reforms have led a lot of opposition. It's fed into a lot of concerns people had about the reforms not going as far as some might like. So realizing that his big new plan may not be the big win earner he had hoped, it can be said that if you confuse the voters, you will be likely to lose the vote. I think he's abandoning ship a lot quicker than I thought he would, and going to make these kinds of comments like we've heard today. In fairness, I think that's probably what he's going to have to do if he wants to carry through with his plan to keep Britain in Europe. I think arguing the nuanced positions he had as the center of Britain's relationship was going to be a hard sell anyway. So to that sense, I'm not surprised. But I am taken aback that it's not taken very long at all for him to change his tack from the positive sell of his proposals to scaremongering, telling people that something will happen when it's pretty unlikely it would, not for the reasons he gives.
Professor Thom Brooks, thank you very much.